This week on World at War, Russia will station tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus to stop the expanding frontiers of the NATO military alliance, as Ukraine trains 40,000 stormtroopers for its spring counter-offensive. North Korea slams military drills by the United States and South Korea, accusing Washington and Seoul of pushing the already volatile region to the brink of a nuclear conflict. Israeli forces stormed the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Jerusalem, firing flashbangs and stun grenades, drawing widespread condemnation over its deadly raids. And narco wars get more deadly in France as 3 young men are shot dead in 3
4 people killed and several missing after a deadly avalanche in southeastern France. Ocean surface temperatures at record high as scientists fear El Nino patterns are already visible. And Bahamas could run out of its traditional seafood delicacy, conch, once again exposes the dangers of overfishing. Watch Climate Tracker at these times only on WION.
And welcome, you're watching WION World is One. My name is Heem Korsra and here's a look at all the top stories this hour. China slams as illegal the intrusion of a US warship into waters that it claims in the South China Sea, after the US Navy said its guided missile destroyer had sailed through the area. Taiwanese fighter jets take off and land at an airbase in the island's north as China continues a series of military drills simulating strikes on Taiwan. Europe must not be a follower of either the United States or China over Taiwan, says French President, warning against getting involved in what he calls crises that aren't ours. US Republican Senator questions whether Macron speaks for Europe. Britain's royal family reveals new details about King Charles's coronation next month, including a new Twitter emoji based on the crown the monarch will wear at the landmark ceremony. World number 5 on Zebou clinches her first title of the season by winning the Charleston Open. The Tunisian overcame defending champion Belinda Bencic 7-6, 6-4 in the final. Well, these were the top stories at this hour. Over now to my colleague Katie for the live broadcast from UK.
This is great, Arab.
A very good morning. The stories from London today with me, Katie Pilbeam, and we begin with a large cache of what appears to be classified Pentagon documents have been circulating on various social media sites. Now, these documents, they reveal details of US spying on Russia war machines in Ukraine and secret assessments of Ukraine's combat power. Well, not only this, the documents also contain intelligence gathered on America's allies, including South Korea and Israel. Well, many of the leaked documents have been labelled as secret. Many of the leaked documents have been labelled as top secret, which is the highest level of classification. Well, the documents, they first appeared online in March. However, the leak, it remains unclear, and it could represent the most serious breach of US intelligence secrets. Well, since 2013, that is when a contractor for the National Security Agency passed on thousands of classified documents to journalists about US electronic surveillance. The latest leak includes repeated references to information based on secret signals, intelligence, electronic eavesdropping. Well, according to a former US intelligence officials, the leaks about Russia and its spy agencies could cause significant damage if Moscow is able to cut off those sources of information. The US Department of Justice has now launched a probe into the possible leak of intel related to Ukraine, China, and West Asia. The Pentagon on Sunday said that it made a formal referral to the Department of Justice asking it to investigate the apparent leak of documents which have been circulating on various social media sites, including Twitter. The US officials have further said that they are taking the leak seriously and they are working towards a more formal assessment of what is actually in these documents and how they were leaked in the first place. Well, the leaks, they have rattled the Pentagon officials, particularly within the Defense Departments of Joint Staff, which comprises, I should say, senior uniformed leadership whose role it is to advise the president. According to the officials, some of the intelligence could have originated from the Five Eyes partner, which is an intelligence alliance comprising of Australia, Canada, New Zealand, the United Kingdom and the United States. But there are also possibilities of the document being leaked by someone who gained access to the US intelligence system. Well, according to the apparent leak, Ukraine's air defences risk running out of missiles and ammunitions within weeks. One of the documents dated the 23rd of February and marked a secret. It outlines in detail how Ukraine's Soviet-era S-300 air defense systems would be depleted by May the 2nd at the current usage stage, which is also being called the rate of burn. Apart from this, the leaked document also reveals how the Kremlin has agreed for peace talks, but has asserted on how it will not accept defeat. Okay. Let's get some more details on this. Delighted to be joined by Glenn Diesen from Norway. A warm welcome to a Professor of International Relations at the University of Southeastern Norway. Thank you so much indeed. So, is there a security concern at the Pentagon? What can we read into this?
Well, there's certainly a security breach. It's just uncertain who it was. You mentioned that it could have been allies within the Five Eyes, but some of the documents appear to have been limited to or restricted access to foreign nationals. So there is, of course, also the concern that this is coming, that's a leak very high up in the U.S. military chain, as these were very highly classified documents. So it could be either pro-Russian elements in the U.S. military, or it could be merely be American military officials who are very critical of this proxy war they're fighting against Russia, as the war position is growing. And but again, this will be pure speculation because so far we do not know. But based on the documents, it would suggest that there would be there would be someone from the U.S. military.
Okay, so you're speaking about who it is. As you say, we simply don't know. It's speculation at the moment. Now, if this intel is to be believed, how worried should we be about Ukraine's position?
Well, it's quite dramatic because they're running out of air defense system. And that means both the weapon systems as well as the interceptor missiles, because, well, Russia's destroyed many of the S-300, but also Ukraine often has to use a lot of these interceptor missiles because Russia has so many, well, first of all, cheap drones, which makes it a bad trade-off, but also has so many missiles. So there is a shortage, obviously. And this is very problematic for Ukraine because without air defenses, Russia can use more air power, which it hasn't really done yet, to dominate the battlefield even more. Because Russia has to date been quite hesitant to use its air force as long as they cannot act with impunity in the skies. So they focus mostly on using their artillery systems. Now, we appear to have reached this point where the air defenses have become so weakened because we see that Russia is already using its air force increasingly often now in areas such as Avdiivka, which means that the war will now drastically shift further to Russia's favor.
Okay, incredibly worrying. Thank you so much indeed. We appreciate your expertise. That's Glenn Dyson there, a Professor of International Relations at the University of South Eastern Norway. Thank you for your time.
My pleasure.
Right, we're going to stay with Ukraine now because the war in Ukraine is possibly changing gears. Per an analysis of satellite images by Al Jazeera has revealed, Russian forces are fortifying the Crimean Peninsula. Why? Well, in anticipation of a Ukrainian attempt to recapture it. The investigation carried out by Al Jazeera Sanad News Verification and Monitoring Unit, it found between February and March, the Crimean border and surrounding areas were transformed into a fortified barrier ahead of an expected spring counteroffensive by the Ukrainian forces. Well, according to the images provided by Sanad, by SkySat and Planet.com, an extensive network of trenches and defences has been constructed, extending across the border of the villages of Crimea. Well, construction and expansion of several significant military bases also took place during the same period. Meanwhile, in Crimea, over the past few months, advertisements for workers to build fortifications have appeared on Russian job sites. Analysts say a shortage of manpower could be a significant reason why these trenches are not yet fully effective. Well, Crimea, which was annexed by Russia in 2014, 8 years before Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And as the war grinds on, Ukraine's political and military leadership has made it clear that it defines victory as reclaiming its 1991 borders that was recognized by Russia. Well, the United Nations and all of Ukraine's Western allies also recognize those borders, which include Crimea. Today is the last day of the Chinese drills near the Taiwan Strait, dubbed as Joint Sword. Well, the three-day exercises have included rehearsing encirclement of Taiwan. The drill is seen as an angry show of force following Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen's meet with the US House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. China is also due to hold live fire drills today in a bid to round off 3 days of military exercises. The Eastern Theatre of Command of the Chinese People's Liberation Army on Sunday continued to conduct combat readiness patrols and military exercises around Taiwan. Well, under the unified command of the Joint Operation Command Center, the troops of multiple services coordinated to carry out simulated precision strikes on key targets around the Taiwan island. Dozens of aircraft of the Air Force, including early warning planes, fighters, bombers and jamming aircraft, flew to the targeted airspace, forming a joint strike system together with the land and sea forces. Well, China's state-run broadcaster released footage showing Chinese Navy conducting live fire drills at the sea. According to Taiwan's defense ministry, 59 Chinese military planes have flown around the island today. 39 of them crossed the Taiwan Strait median line and entered Taiwan's air defense zones. On Sunday, 70 Chinese aircraft flew around the island. Taiwan's Coast Guard administration also released a video which shows an officer warning a Chinese military vessel not to draw near the island's territorial water limit.
国大陆131军舰，这里是中华民国海巡署100拐沟艇广播。你现在已经严重破坏地域和平、稳定及安全，请你立刻转向驶离。如果你继续前进，我将采取驱离措施。
Well, the Taiwanese president has denounced these drills and has pledged to work with the US and other like-minded countries in the face of what she called was continued authoritarian expansionism. French President Emmanuel Macron has offered a new vision for Europe over Taiwan. Macron, who was on a 3-day visit to China last week, said that Europe should have a policy on Taiwan which is independent of both America and China. Well, the comments, they come as the European nation seeks to develop its own relations with China, which are free from influence of its ally, the US. The French president also said that Europe has no interest in fueling the crisis over Taiwan. The comments, they were made during an interview to 2 European media outlets. Macron added that Europe should emerge as, quote unquote, the third pole between US and China. He also talked about reducing dependence on the US dollar for the betterment of its economy. Well, the comments, they caught the attention of Republican leader Marco Rubio. Taking to Twitter, Rubio said that it is important to find out if entire Europe supports Macron's views, or just Macron. He also uploaded a video where he appeared to highlight France's dependence on America.
I think this is a good moment for us to ask Europe, does Macron speak for all of Europe? Is Macron now the head of Europe? Is he now the most powerful leader in Europe? Because if he is, then there's some things we're going to need to change. Number one, Europe, including France specifically, has depended heavily on the United States for 70 years for their own defense. In fact, when Macron tried to play global superpower and send troops to North Africa to fight terrorists, he couldn't even get his own troops there. We had to fly them there, and we had to fly them back. He couldn't even get his own troops there. So if they're going to break off on their own and follow Macron's lead, that's going to save us a lot of money.
Well, as a reminder, Macron has just returned from China, receiving a warm welcome from his counterpart Xi Jinping. Well, during the visit, he held talks with Xi on several important issues, including the Ukraine conflict. Macron's advisor said that the two leaders also held a dense discussion over Taiwan. A quarter of a century since the signing of a peace deal that largely ended violence in Northern Ireland, British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says efforts need to be intensified to restore the power-sharing government that is central to the accord. Well, signed in Belfast on the 10th of April in 1998, the Good Friday Agreement is considered one of the most significant peace deals of the late 20th century, seeking to end 3 decades of sectarian strife that killed more than 3,600 people. The 1998 peace deal ended Northern Ireland's decades-long violent conflict, but peace has come under strain following Britain's exit from the European Union and other political crises overshadowing this week's commemorations. The British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak says the peace deal was based on a compromise, and this should be the defining message for the next chapter in Northern Ireland. Sunak further states that the new generation of politicians have work on their hands. They have to restore the government at Stormont as soon as possible, as he and Ireland's Taoiseach prepare to intensify work to broker a way out of the deadlock. Well, speaking on Sunday, the Irish Prime Minister said that he plans to work with the British Prime Minister over the Windsor Framework and power sharing in Northern Ireland. Meanwhile, US President Joe Biden will fly into Northern Ireland on Tuesday. He will attend the anniversary events, a reflection of the role the United States plays in brokering the agreement. The coronation of King Charles is around the corner now. The grand ceremony, though comparatively shorter in scale, will see the crowning of the king. Well, a Twitter emoji of this crown has also been revealed. Royal workers are readying the royal coaches in which the king and his wife will travel in. The ceremony is scheduled to take place on the 9th of May at the Royal Church, Westminster Abbey. 2 coaches, the Diamond Jubilee State Coach and the Gold State Coach, will be used for the procession. The one present on your screen is the Diamond Jubilee State Coach. Well, King Charles and the Queen Consort Camilla will be taken from Buckingham Palace to the Abbey in this coach. It was built to commemorate the late Queen Elizabeth's 60th year on the throne and was first used in 2014. The carriage's interior includes samples of objects taken from historic buildings and palaces, while on top sits a gilded crown. This crown has been carved from one of the Royal Navy's 18th century flagships.
Inside is beautifully upholstered in primrose yellow silk, and also fitted into the interior are particular specimen woods. It's a real microcosm of British and world history. There's woods from the royal residences, from explorations, and from other countries and nations as well.
Well, the royal couple will return in the Gold State Coach. This 260-year-old coach has been used at every coronation since the ceremony of late Prince William IV in 1831. The coach, it weighs 4 tons and will require 8 horses to move it.
Historically, it was used relatively regularly for state openings of Parliament in the 18th and 19th centuries. But in the 20th and certainly in the 21st, there's been very few opportunities to use it. And therefore, it's actually really fortunate that it was seen on the streets of London just last year for the Platinum Jubilee pageant, and then again this year for the King's coronation.
Well, the ceremony will be less elaborative than the one which took place in 1953 during the coronation of the late Queen Elizabeth. The royal couple will travel along a shorter procession route. This is partly due to changing societal mindsets and current cost of living crisis. Well, several details of the event have been revealed by the royal officials, including the Twitter emoji of the crown that King Charles will wear. It's based on the 17th century crown of St. Edward. The ceremony will also feature a star-studded concert, nationwide big lunch and volunteering initiatives. Okay, let's get some sport now. The most entertaining fixture in Premier League history. Well, it lived up to its billing as Liverpool came back from 2 goals down to claim a point against leaders Arsenal. Roberto Firmino's late equaliser blew the title race wide open after a pulsating encounter at Anfield. The Gunners, well, they're chasing a first title since the 2003-04 season and initially look set to pass one of their toughest tests yet. Well, this fixture was produced, well, the most number of goals in the Premier League, and the in-form Gabriel Martinelli put the visitors ahead with just 8 minutes on the clock at this point. Well, some sloppy defending allowed the Brazilian to slot in his 14th league goal of the season. Arsenal have not yet won a league game at Anfield since 2012, but went 2 up in the 28th minute. Martinelli turned provider this time as his pinpoint cross was headed in by Gabriel Jesus. Arsenal seemed in cruise control at that point, but an altercation between Granit Xhaka and Trent Alexander-Arnold, well, it sparked Liverpool into life. Moments after that scuffle, Mohamed Salah pulled one back for the hosts with a poacher's effort. There was a bizarre incident, though, at the end of the first half. As Liverpool fullback Andrew Robertson, he was elbowed by one of the linesmen. The Premier League refereeing body has launched a probe into this incident. Just 6 minutes after the interval, Jurgen Klopp's side were awarded a penalty after a rash challenge from Rob Holding on Diogo Jota. But Salah, he shot wide of the goal, missing his second straight penalty. Liverpool, they peppered the Arsenal goal and were denied multiple times by Aaron Ramsdale, but their perseverance finally paid off as Roberto Firmino, well, he levelled matters by turning in a superb cross from Alexander-Arnold. The drama, it continued in a thrilling finale as Ramsdale produced two spectacular saves in injury time, first denying Salah and then defender Konate from point-blank range. Arsenal somehow held on for their first point at Anfield in 7 years and are now 6 points ahead of Manchester City. But the defending champions do have a game in hand.
Against Arsenal, and apart from penalties, no player has scored more Premier League goals against Arsenal now than Roberto Firmino. Konate.
Thank you so much indeed for your company this hour. Stay tuned to WION for more international headlines coming up for you shortly.
Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground? At Gravitas, we don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared to speak truth to power.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here, in New York's Catskill Mountains, lies a luxurious place of healing called WION Wellness Center. The WION Wellness Center provides 500,000 square feet of natural methods to manage diabetes, hypertension, chronic pain, obesity, depression, anxiety, and other conditions. We use the traditions of centuries-old natural science from India, yoga, Ayurveda, acupuncture, and naturopathy in personalized programs that help you take charge of your own health. A minimum 5-day stay is recommended for best results. Book now at YoOne.com